Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this invitation. I have the session brief with me, and I was given a small snippet to set the context. Promise to the organizers, I will not deviate from the overall spirit, but I thought let me set my own context for a cracker of a panel that we have here. Uh, you know, um, Last year, uh, India lost 30 days in a year of productivity to climate-related events. And I'm not saying this, consumer companies are saying this, accepting this in analyst calls, which means that you're working for 12 months, but you're getting yield for 11 months. So flash floods, heat strokes, extreme heat is causing business disruptions. And it is now recorded by consumer companies across the value chain because once these events happen. So there's something called climate-induced impact on the business, which is now starting to get acknowledged by companies. Let me give you another data set. Last year, NCR Delhi recorded an AQI of less than 40 for only 7 days in a year. Okay. So now we have normalized AQI of 100 as healthy. But the WHO standard says that the AQI needs to be less than 40, and NCR was in the 40 zone for only 7 days in a year. As per the census of 2011, 35% of urban Indians live in slums. So we don't have the new census right now, but various studies record that in any major city, between 30 to 40% is your slum population. Also, 35% is the number of households in urban India that are connected to any sewage system. So it does not matter what the politics of climate is evolving in the world, whether US pulls out of the climate accord of Paris or not. Climate will force you as MSMEs, as businesses, to take decisions, to remodel your businesses for the accepted new reality. We can't escape that anymore. It's a question that is now about survival. So much so that the UN Secretary General last year went on record to say that the age of global warming is over. We are in the age of global boiling. Okay, he is on record and accepted that. So we thought, and this is the context to appreciating the topic of this very serious, it's a serious topic. It requires a lot of reflection, a lot of debate, and it requires a lot of introspection. And therefore, I'm really privileged to introduce this panel to you because as MSMEs, we work in businesses where you have emissions, you have effluents, you work with packaging, you work with logistics, you work with plastic. And we have industry experts from all three areas. And for the next 1 hour, we are going to understand these separate aspects of a business that an MSME confronts in a value chain, and what it means to build climate resilience, what it means to build sustainability resilience. So, so that I thought, let me put this context first, and that's the reason. That's the overall arching context in which you should be looking at the wisdom that will be shared by the panelists. And without further, I don't want to listen to my own voice. I would like to begin with you. Tetra Pak has been at the forefront of innovation. Tetra Pak works very closely with MSMEs and has always sort of set benchmarks for packaging. And packaging comes under a lot of scrutiny now. So as MSMEs are now thinking about packaging solutions for sustainability, how will you decipher the world of packaging for MSMEs going forward? And if you can bring in some examples from what Tetra Pak's innovation is thinking, that would be great.
Thank you for the question. For the audience, Tetra Pak is a leading packaging and processing company. And I would say that when you're looking at packaging, sustainable packaging by design, one should start by the design itself. What are the materials that you're putting in the packaging? So at Tetra Pak, we are committed to make one of the most sustainable packaging, which has recycled content, which is coming from responsible sourcing when you talk about materials, and it's driving carbon neutrality. So that's our ambition. So on the design side, I'll just give 1 or 2 examples that we are putting in our package. we have three materials that we put in our package. Primarily, it is the paper board, which is 70%, 25% is polymer or plastics, and 5% is aluminum. So we are trying to reduce the materials in our packaging to make it more recyclable and more attractive. So with that vision in mind, we have introduced a package which is fiber-based. So we are trying to replace aluminum and put fiber barrier there. We've already launched it in Portugal, and we are planning to bring it in other countries as well. So what that will do is, one, the material will be only two, plastics and paperboard. So it would be more attractive for the recyclers. The second is recycled content. Everybody is talking about recycled content today. There are EPR regulations which are mandating to bring recycled content from April 2025 onwards. I'm very happy to say that at Tetra Pak, we have already prepared ourselves and offering solutions to the customers, having 5% of recycled content in the beverage carton segment. We are the first ones in the beverage carton segment to be able to do so. Globally also, we've already introduced a lot of portfolio with recycled content, whether it is the dairy customers or the juice customers. We have launched it in Switzerland, we've launched it in France and many other countries. So it's a matter of great pride for us to be able to launch it in India as well. So that's on the design side. The next thing that I want to talk about is recycling and collection. So on the downstream, while I talked about upstream interventions on the design side, there is also a lot of efforts that need to be done on the collection recycling side of it, because a material may be renewable, recyclable, but if it's not getting collected in the first place, then there's no point. So I'm very happy to say that Tetra Pak has worked on creating a robust value chain for collection, sorting, and recycling of the used cartons. And this we started doing even before the EPR laws were in place. We did voluntarily EPR for last 20 years and are in a position now to have a robust aggregator who's actually collecting post-consumer cartons once it is consumed and disposed. So this is very, very important because if you look at the waste management landscape, we have issues of waste segregation at source, which is a key challenge, and also infrastructure when it comes to collection and recycling. So it's really, really important for us as brands to really take our EPR responsibilities very seriously and do our bit. But at the same time, there is a responsibility for the consumer as well to be able to sort the waste that they are generating so that can be value derived out of that waste. So upstream as well as downstream.
As a follow-up question on that, I'm just applying the MSME lens to these great ideas. Normally what happens is whenever we talk about innovation in packaging, and the MSME says that it's very expensive. Okay, how do I incorporate the economics of this expensive solution when my customer is not ready to pay? My annual turnover is 20 crores, 50 crores, and you want me to adopt the most innovative solution. So how should they look at price discovery for these innovations so that they can start to integrate in their supply chain? That's part one of the question. The second part is you talked about downstream waste recycling. What role again MSME can play, do you envisage in the material recoveries so that this entire process of waste segregation and waste collection increases for recycling solutions to emerge with MSMEs?
Sure. Again, a great question. I would say that for MSME, while they are exempt from EPR regulations today, but one thing should be clear: the intent should be there. We should really realize this is the right thing for us to do. Everything is not just about cost, and frankly, this is also a myth that everything comes at a cost. Every innovation may not be cost intensive, but there are a lot of innovations which are also cost effective. Yeah. And in the large scheme of things, when you come to, we're talking about climate change, we're talking about planet, we need to do what is right. So sustainability is an absolute imperative, and I don't think we should cut corners if we are trying to introduce innovative packaging there. I agree there is a say-do gap there when it comes to actual demand for paying a premium on sustainable or recycled products. So here again, I think we need to create that demand right from starting from our own supply chain. For example, cartons, many of you would be interested to know that 90% of the auto rickshaws have backseat and rest as recycled cartons. So that we are already using it. Again, there are pallets where FCI is using it for storing about 6 tons of grains. So these pallets we can also use in our own supply chains as an alternate material. So, it starts at home, I would say, and then obviously there is a journey that we need to take up to ensure everybody is aware, and the price element, gradually will come into place when it is weighed against the benefits against the climate.
Sure. No, thanks. This is helpful. And Rajesh, I'll bring you here on this. Not many people know actually, India has got one of the best pet recycling rates in the world. While we may argue about sanitation and waste standards, our pet recycling rates are in excess of 90%. And it is all thanks to MSMEs. The MSMEs that are involved in, so certain aspects of waste we have already taken care of, and there's a big role that MSMEs are playing. And I think Coca Cola is at the center of pet. You can't not talk to Coca Cola when you talk about pet recycling, and we talk about. Again, a follow-up question from the lens of MSMEs. If, let's say, pet hard plastic is part of their life, is part of the businesses, what is Coca Cola doing? How can they learn from Coca Cola? That's and I'll do the follow-up question later on.
Thanks for the question. In fact, I was wishing that you would ask me that. Okay, so it's a very large subject, but I will try to be as succinct as possible. On the aspect of sustainability and packaging, Coca-Cola as a global mega brand, I would say, looks at it, again, something similar to what Juhi was mentioning, the design part of it, the collection part of it, and the third one is called the partnering. So under design, we strive to make 100% of our packaging to be actually recyclable. That ensures that they can be recycled back and brought back into the original packaging for which it was intended. In the design aspect, you were asking a question about cost. Since decades, we have been working on optimizing our packaging in the sense that we wanted to optimize the weight of our packs. So today, if you see a bottle of Coca Cola 250 ml, the weight of that preform is just about 9.7 grams compared to a conventional preform which used to weigh around 23 grams. So in fact, by embracing new technology, you have not only reduced your usage of virgin PET, you have reduced your cost of packaging, and you have also reduced your cost of transportation because your weight is less. So I can go on and on about innovation, but I think I'll halt here. In terms of collection, obviously EPR regulations are there in place, and we have been doing collection. We have been following various models, and obviously not trying to create new models, but trying to build up on the existing ecosystem of waste collection which is there in the country and strengthening it up. And we have been at 100% EPR since the last 2 years and will continue to do so. In fact, on the aspect of recycled packaging, Coca-Cola was in fact the first company in this country to introduce recycled PET packages. We introduced them under our brands Kinley and Coca-Cola last year, and we'll continue to build up that volume. Obviously, there is a regulation which is kicking in from next year. But if you really ask me what would be my bit of advice to the MSMEs, while they might not come under the purview of EPR or maybe some of the other regulations, sustainability is something which is core to our business. And any business that functions in this country or anywhere in this world has to embrace sustainability if it wants to continue. Because I'm representing a brand which has sustained itself for more than 135 years. And each one of you, the MSMEs, would also like your own companies to do that. So sustainability appears to come at a cost, but it actually reduces the cost of doing business.
And a follow-up question to that is, EPR norms came out in 2016, extended producer responsibility started to emerge as a concept. For the first time, both MSMEs and corporates were looking at taking a stab at it. what opportunities do you see for MSMEs, both as a business opportunity to get plugged into this reverse supply chain that goes from consumer to big corporates? So what kind of business opportunities are there for MSMEs? One. Second question is, should each MSME look at this kind of a reverse logistics that Coca Cola is doing? Or can there be collaborations where you can look at somebody else's reverse logistics and you can partner? Because I don't think every SME will have the wherewithal, will have the resources to think about reverse value chain in such a manner. Your comments.
Okay, so if we really look at the current landscape, what was existing till last year, I would say, you mentioned that very high recycling percentage of 90%. Most of that was actually going into what we call as upcycling, because it was going into the fiber industry, the yarn industry and stuff like that. And when big brands like Coca Cola, PepsiCo, Bisleri, when we all wanted to actually get our hands on that feedstock, we really had a very tough time. And while we were able to achieve our EPR obligations by various schemes like credit purchase and all of that, that feedstock never actually passed through our hands, because it was there was a very well established chain of reverse logistics, largely driven by the informal waste workers in this country, which I think is highly efficient, but yes, there are always areas to improve. So when we went into this job of looking at creating food grade recycled PET capacities, we actually started off from scratch. And I'll just to quote some numbers at an industry level. By the year 2025, we are looking at a requirement of close to around 150,000 million metric tons of recycled PET to meet the 30% obligation. That's as per the industry level. And as of last year, the capacity for recycled PET was only around 30,000 metric tons. So there was a huge gap. So companies, MSMEs, of course, some of those MSMEs who are into the recycling sector have invested into recycling capacities. They have created that new business opportunity for themselves where they can actually become suppliers. And that is where this collaboration comes in. But at the same time, our job is to ensure that those investments that these MSMEs are making, they stay protected, which means that as reputable brands who have got their own corporate reputation at stake, we also should ensure that we off-take the product from these MSMEs who have created these recycling capacities and ensure that their investments are giving them their returns.
This is helpful. And Shweta, let me bring you in here. I mean, we cannot talk about resilient supply chain without talking about logistics and without talking about aggregation, without talking about this entire orchestra of activities that go into making consumption meet production. And who else but to sort of look at Amazon for ideas, innovation, inspiration. So my question to you would be that how do you interpret, as Amazon, how do you interpret the concept of resilient supply chain? When we say climate resilient supply chain, what does it mean for Amazon? What are the elements? And I think that short masterclass will help MSME to understand various concepts of resilient supply chain from the context of Amazon.
Sure, thanks for that question, Ankur, and I'm really glad to be here to share perspectives on how we at Amazon are driving sustainability. I want to just set a little bit of context. So I'll start off by saying that at Amazon, the way that we approach sustainability is to look long-term. We then take on ambitious goals, because when you set yourself up to a high bar, then you work and the entire organization rallies to get you there. And finally, in order to get you there, you need to come up with innovative solutions. You need to be creative. So this is kind of the three-step approach that we have when it comes to sustainability. And with that in mind, back in 2019, we co-founded the Climate Pledge. The Climate Pledge is an ambitious goal to achieve net zero carbon by 2040, and this is 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. So we already know the challenges that exist in achieving the Paris Agreement, and we decided to say, hey, let's see if we can take the bar a little higher and push that and bring down that time scale. So with the climate pledge as kind of our North Star, we've been driving to bring about change and make our business and operations sustainable. And as you know and are aware, we have an extremely complex, but also extremely large scope of businesses across the organization. And so when you translate this kind of an ambitious goal into what it means for each and every part of our business, it really means looking at your own internal processes and measures to say, is it sustainable enough? How can I decarbonize my business, whether it is our operations network or it's AWS or any of our businesses across the organization. So the first step is to look internally to say what are the ways in which we can drive efficiency. And we do that in a number of ways. We've talked about, at least from a logistics perspective, there's a lot of efficiency and optimization that we drive towards. We also recognize that while we look internally and we can do a lot of things, we're a large company, we can do things within our span of control, there are things that are beyond our span of control, and that requires collective action. Because our climate crisis isn't a solo journey, it is one that we must all collectively take. And therefore, through initiatives like the Climate Pledge, we bring in the collective action element to what we need to do. So, we've obviously got almost 548 signatories across every industry sector and geographic presence. So that really brings in regional nuances, it brings industry-specific nuances to solving climate challenges and to decarbonization. So that really brings a very mixed bag approach to what we're doing. To kind of just go back to, specifically around logistics, if you look at the network, we're in the network of moving packages and products from manufacturers and sellers all the way down to our customers, right? And that is it is a supply chain that's complex. It's basically broken down into our first mile, where we bring it in from the manufacturing facility to our Amazon facilities, where we then process it and then moves down the chain. So we're decarbonizing this leg through various things. We leverage maritime shipping because many of our products do come from across the globe. There's a lot of transportation involved there. We're also leveraging intermodal railways. In fact, Amazon was the first e-commerce company to enter into an MOU with the Indian Railways to leverage our extremely vast railway network in India. So that brings in its own level of efficiency and optimization. So that's one way that we're doing it. We also entered into a partnership with the Inland Waterways Authority of India, again, leveraging the vastly untapped waterways network that exists in India. So again, as you can see, we're trying to work with the government because, again, that's highly beneficial when you're working in India. And then we're leveraging opportunities like these where we can partner, build out that collective approach to driving efficiencies. Moving on to the middle mile, I think one of the key ways that we're trying to do this is electrification. So electrification of our trucks is a big part of it. In places where electrification is still not mature enough, and middle mile is a prime example for that, where our heavy and medium duty trucks are still, they're still evolving. We still have a long way to go there. Again, so, electrification is one way. In places where we can't electrify, we're looking at alternatives that are low carbon. Examples include low carbon fuels. We have a partnership with HPCL, where we have entered into that partnership to co-develop and make low carbon fuels available for the middle mile transportation network. Then I'll move into our last mile. Again, we've seen a lot of transformation. There's been a lot of electrification progress in the last mile in our country, aided by a lot of our policies that the government of India has instituted, like FAME, etc. So electrifying our last mile fleet, again, has been a big goal that we took. And back in 2020, we took on a pretty ambitious goal because at that time, we didn't have some of the tailwinds that we see today. But we took that goal anyway, not really knowing how we were going to get there. Happy to share that as of last year, we took on a goal to bring in 10,000 EVs into our fleet by 2025. And happy to say that we achieved that goal a year ahead last year in October. So electrifying our fleet, again, is another opportunity. And again, in every step of this transportation network, building out efficiencies, optimizing for distance and cost is naturally inbuilt. And we leverage AI, machine learning, wherever possible to further drive those synergies.
So are you seeing business gains in doing these programs, or is it because climate is demanding you and therefore you are putting it in practice? But essentially, business gains in the form of cost efficiencies, scale efficiencies, have you seen that? Because I think that's the key metric that MSMEs always look at, financial, immediate short-term financial gains, or is it a long-term journey that I need to make and it's a compulsion? So.
So it kind of goes back, at Amazon, when we took on some of our initiatives, many of them were not, at the outset cost efficient. But I think we believe that the first step towards driving those cost efficiencies, we know about how the trajectory of how renewable energy is now cost economical, but when it started off, it's not necessarily always at that point. So we believe that sending out demand signals is the first step. And when we as a large organization send out those demand signals, I feel it spurs a flywheel of innovation, it spurs a flywheel of everyone around in the ecosystem involved to start thinking along the same way, right? Our electrification journey is a prime example of that, where we worked with OEMs to start thinking about what kind of EVs we wanted on our fleet. Obviously, our requirements were specific, so we kind of co-created that with our OEMs. We worked with our delivery service partners, because again, we rely on our delivery service partners to adopt EVs. We worked to pass on some of the benefits of being a large organization in terms of financing, et cetera, to our DSPs. And then finally, we worked on very, very systematically on building out that awareness, talking about why it's important, why is electrification important, what would it do? So, systemically along the value chain, we've been trying to address some of these issues and working with everyone in the...
Sure. Tetra, you talked about, and I'll bring you in here, you talked about packaging solutions. And traceability is an important element of that aspect. And whenever we talk about making a transition in supply chain towards sustainability, towards circularity, traceability and the idea of traceability, the measurement of traceability becomes almost like a platform on which you can build everything. So if you can enlighten us on what you mean by traceability and why it is important as a foundation of building a resilient supply chain. And I think that will be a good wisdom to share with the MSMEs.
So Ankur, thank you for this question. And me and Rajesh were just talking about it before our session. Let me start with traceability for recycled content, because it's very, very important. The customers will also demand from us how we are really procuring and securing plastic waste that we are using for our recycled content, basically. So we are using ISCC Plus, which is an internationally recognized standard of how the procurement needs to happen. There would be a certificate, sustainability certificate, which will be passed on to us from our supplier, which would further pass on to our customer. So there's a full chain of custody established on how this plastic waste is procured, secured, and the processes that it undergoes to create circular polymer. So that's on recycled. Now, again, like I mentioned, we've been working on the collection of used cartons for a very long time now. And though we have internal systems in place, we are also going digital now. So in all our aggregator sites, we are using a tool called Satma now, which is really a real-time tool, digital tool, which tells us on how much of inward has happened when it comes to carton waste and how much of outward is going. So there are weighable details and other documentation support that we are using this digital tool for. So there is a lot of traceability. I think it's very, very important. There is EPR regulation in place, but transparency needs to be built in. The regulation is also getting into more stringency now. There is a portal that Central Pollution Control Board has built where every brand owner needs to document what they are doing in terms of collection and recycling. So these sort of digital tools and internationally recognized certifications really help us build that traceability within our supply chains.
So it's something like, the journey in 90s when ISO started. And a lot of these certification programs kicked in, and earlier there was a lot of apprehensions in MSMEs to sort of take on to this. But now it is almost like a second skin, that I am certified on X, Y, Z. So you're alluding to this kind of journey that you need to initiate on traceability, to put systems in place, to put documentation in place. Yeah.
It's a value differentiator, I would say. So if you want to remain competitive in the market, I think this is the way to go. There are also regulations of BRSR and all coming in where companies need to report on their environmental performances and data. So customers also will ask you on your sustainability journey, how are you sourcing your material? Is your materials recyclable? So from a packaging solution perspective, I think renewability, where your material is coming from, how much CO2 is emitted, they are very, very important components. We have also developed 2 tools for managing our entire CO2 calculator. So each package, basically, it's available on our website. So a person can go and whichever packaging that he's using, he can just put those parameters and know how much carbon dioxide is emitted through that packaging and what are the more amiable options that he can select from.
Rajesh, EPR rules came in 2016. Okay, and I think up till now, government is only softly mandated. It's not a hard mandate. I mean, there are certain targets that are given to companies, and people are putting in systems to show a certain percentage that is recycled. And when we talk about building resilient supply chains, MSMEs, or for that matter, one corporate alone, one MSME alone can't build that supply chain. Okay, there is an ecosystem, there is a regulatory environment, and state as an important element, as an important agency in this can't be ignored, the government to that extent. So same question on traceability and also EPR implementation. How are you creating pressure points with the government, or let's say dialogues with the government, to accelerate certain things? Because whenever such change happens, there is an ask from the government that, private sector should do this. And private sector will say, no, first you have to do this. So what is it that is your ask list from the state, from the government, that you think is not happening, and because of that the journey is not accelerating at the pace it should be? Some comments on that.
So I would actually thank the government for the EPR regulations, because that has put a lot of, I would say, method to the madness. When the EPR regulations initially were notified somewhere around 2012 actually. Subsequently, there were many iterations, and the targets also kept changing. Sometimes it was 100%, sometimes it became 50%, stuff like that. But I think from the year 2018, they have been more or less online, and this 100% collection has been in existence since the last 2.5, 3 years now. And that's the reason why we have been compliant. But having said that, when we initially started on this journey of collection, and of course we had our global mandates also, where we had ambitions to do a lot of collections. So we were actually, I would say, on a discovery phase. And through that discovery phase, we realized that okay, right from the tier 4, which I would call would be the Safai Sati, as the material moves up from tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 would be probably a recycler. So there are multiple pieces of documents which actually build up that traceability chain. And if I am reporting that I have collected at even 1 ton of PET, then I should be able to ensure for every single gram of that 1 ton, I have the entire documentary trail with me. Okay. Now those documents do exist and they do come to us. But the question or the issue is the sheer volume of documents. In fact, I remember one of our bottlers, when one of our larger bottlers, the first time that they went to file their EPR returns to CPCB, so they took a truckload of documents. And the regulator said, no, I don't want all of that. Yes. So subsequently, what we try to do and we have been doing over the last 3 years is to leverage technology and digitization. And we have been working internally, at least, with a startup, and it's a blockchain-based solution. Because when we are getting these inward credits from multiple agencies, each agency has got its own platform. Now we need a tool which will be able to talk to each one of those platforms through APIs. And so that we can draw only the piece of data that is relevant to us, and we have our own dashboard which hosts all of these supporting documents, as well as a piece of AI, because without speaking about AI nowadays, you become like a very old person. So we have also incorporated a element of AI in the sense that the application is also able to detect if there are any errors in the documentations. So in that manner, while in our team, which actually does this entire reporting and collection for the entire system of bottling operations that we foresee, there is only one person. So I can't expect him to really look at any of those documents. And this has really helped, and it has been rolled across our system. And I know I'm talking in a public forum, but at least my North Star is that at some point of time, this tool, if it can really talk to the EPR portal, then it can be like a 100% online, anytime data transfer availability. So that's what we are ambitioning for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we both talked about technology integration, but we also need to look at the sector that we are talking about. It's largely informal. Waste sector is largely informal. It's not easy to really deploy technological solutions across. But I think efforts are there, intent is there from the brands. I won't say we've reached the epitome of where we want to go, but it's a journey.
That's the question I wanted to solve and probably get an answer from both of you, or probably three of you. So you have technology. We have said that we need technology to replace documentation. We have intent. Both government as well as people want change. Why is it not happening? Is there a layer of governance that is missing? Is there a third-party intervention that is missing, and there is dormancy on both sides, and both sides need to come together, and there is a third player who should play that role? What should kickstart this? Because we are living in an age of extreme emergency. We are breathing at 100 AQI, and we have normalized it. That's why I said this context. So, just wanted to push that question a little further.
Okay, so let me try it, and then of course my other panelists can begin. I was very recently in a workshop in Hyderabad with one of our suppliers who manufactures recycled PET. And the intent of my workshop was not to look at their facility, but to actually look at their supply chain. And in a room, something similar to this, a little bit smaller, we had representation all the way from tier 2 to tier 3. And what we were trying to drive during that is not just traceability. Actually, we have, I would say, progressed a lot in terms of traceability, okay? But what we are trying to drive now is something called as responsible sourcing. Because that is an area which probably, I would say, exists in terms of other ingredients that many industries might use. Probably when we are talking about sugarcane, we can talking about fruit pulp or anything like that, specifically from a beverage perspective. But as far as recycled PET is concerned, so that's also now an ingredient for us. And if we have to ensure that it is sourced in a responsible manner, we need to have the traceability, we need to have that all the way to the tier 1 fellows, which means that there will be a lot of remediation efforts which will be happening in those areas to take away any kind of non-conformances. So I would say that I don't see there is a hurdle or there is any kind of a big jump that needs to be done. Things are moving in the right direction. It's just a question of time before the large-scale adoption happens across the ecosystem, and we will see it running through.
I just want to add, I think I agree with Rajesh. If you look at the sector 10 years back, there is sea change that has happened, and there is no, no deterrent right now, but it's a journey. It's an evolution that everybody needs to take on. He was talking about responsible sourcing, not just, in terms of material sourcing, etc., but also there is discussion globally that we have on the waste workers, who are the key pillars of the entire waste management sector. Is there child labor which is deployed? What are the living conditions of these waste workers? It's very difficult to stand in a forum and say, yes, my plastic collection that has happened does not deploy any child labor. So, but there are contracts and all that we're trying to ensure it does not happen. There is a forum called Responsible Sourcing where we are part of. It works on similar principles like Fair Circularity Initiative, where responsible sourcing has made some framework, and it is going to be tracking the role of waste workers and the living conditions of the waste workers, how you can really improve when you're talking about robust EPR implementation, so to say.
Shweta, I mean, last question. I think we're running short on time. It's such an engaging discussion. I can go on and on. I mean, you talked about climate pledge of Amazon, and then this entire journey that Amazon has taken. If you can build on that question and throw some light on how do you build a culture within an organization around sustainability, around climate, around things that we are talking about. So, that perspective will help MSMEs to sort of look at inward also in terms of putting the entire team together and thinking through towards that common goal. So any learnings from Amazon and culture?
Yeah, and a very interesting question at that, Ankur, because in 2023, we've obviously been driving our sustainability efforts for more than a decade. And there's, as with any learning journey, we've had a lot of things that we've discovered on the way, things that, don't need to be reinvented. Like we've already figured it, we've gone down the wrong path, we figured that's not going to work, we pivoted and we've moved down another path that's worked for us. So all our learnings and journey on this sustainability effort has been captured, and we've made that public in 2023 through what we call the Amazon Sustainability Exchange. So this is really a resource hotspot for anybody, and especially MSMEs, to go out there to see how Amazon and an organization like Amazon did it, right? So all of our learnings are out there. We have them as information, we have them as guidelines, we have them as playbooks. So, we have them right now across 7 topics like carbon-free electricity. As you know, Amazon is the largest corporate procurer of renewable energy globally, and we've held that position 4 times in a row. And we've achieved our renewable energy goals. So I think, topics like renewable energy. Then we have playbooks and information around transportation. So, how can an MSME, who wants to start off on this journey or is through this journey but is on one of the other, maturity points, what are the things that are essential for you? You can always refer to all the information that's published. It's publicly available. To really chart out your own sustainability journey. And that's the intent. As I mentioned, it's a collective journey for all of us. So it's not that, we've discovered it and we're going to keep it to ourselves. We can't move and make progress on the climate crisis if we're not doing it all together. And that's why I feel working together, sharing journeys and sharing learnings is extremely essential. And we hope that, platforms like the Sustainability Exchange will be able to help everyone.
We are not on time. We are 3 seconds to 1 hour. Thank you very much. I hope the session did offer some insight, some wisdom to probably think about this issue on various aspects which are important. That was the idea of this session. It was really an engaging discussion. I really enjoyed personally. And thank you very much for taking the time out from your busy schedules and to be able to sort of share your thoughts on this. Thank you very much.